Welcome back to this month's Roundtable, your all-in-one comprehensive view of what's happening across the real estate industry, straight from some of the industry's earliest technology adopters and foremost experts in technology, marketing, brokerage, government policy, capital, construction, and cybersecurity. As always, this is a three-part show. Part 1, introduction, what's new for each of our roundtable hosts. Part 2, sector focus. We unpack the biggest news and paradigm shifts affecting the industry. Part 3, what does this mean for your business? What can you do about it? How can you outpace your competition in the next 30 days? I'm Andreas, Senie, founder, CEO, CRE Collaborative, brokerage owner, and commercial director at KW Commercial. Joining me this month is none other than Saul, Klein, CEO, San Diego MLS, Realtor, Emeritus, data advocate, Futurist. The list goes on and on. One of the nicest, smartest people I know. Saul, great to have you back with us in sunny
Always
California.
good to be here, Andreas. Good to talk to you and talk to the crew here and get a feel for what's going to happen this month.
Yeah, it's a candid conversation across all of the different disciplines that come together in real estate. You can't find it anywhere else. At least not at this level, at this caliber, which is proven out by our almost, if not, over 4,000 tune-ins and downloads monthly. So thank you to our audience as well. Also joining us, Dan Wagner, Senior VP, Government Relations at the Inland Real Estate Group of Companies. Dan, nice to see you as always. Back this month as well, Chris Abel, Vice President, Associated Builders and Contractors, Connecticut, also board member, SMPS, Society for Marketing Professionals. Chris, we missed you. I've got questions. I hope you've got answers. Nice to see you, my friend.
Fair enough. Good to be back. Good to be back.
And joining a bit late, but certainly not forgotten, Rebecca Carlson, founder, CEO of Carlson Integrated, past president of Nightcar, who will be joining us as we move forward. So let's be sure to call her out on the carpet when she shows up late. That being said, Saul, you're to my right. What is the latest and greatest coming out of San Diego, coming out of the MLS, coming out of your worldview as a futurist, as part of the original team that helped invent what is now Realtor.com? What's happening in the industry? Go ahead.
Well, first of all, it rained today, and as the owner of a car wash, I hate it when it rains. We don't make any money when it rains, but other than that, the market times here for residential property have increased a bit. I don't know whether that's good or bad. It's probably a little bit more stable market, so it's not all bad. And in general, I think most people are pretty happy. There's a big acquisition in the industry. Rocket Mortgage purchased Redfin. So Redfin is an online real estate brokerage firm, and they were purchased by Rocket Mortgage. And of course, then Rocket Mortgage, a couple of days later, went on to purchase Mr. Cooper, which is a loan servicer, major loan servicer. And I think this kind of plays into the scenario that we've been talking about, Andreas, which is the digitization of the loan. And one thing I encourage people to do is kind of get a feeling for what we mean when we say the life cycle of a loan, and because that life cycle is going to become more compact and probably fewer players in the market, which will reduce costs. And that's big news for particularly mortgage loan brokers. They hate me for saying this, but I think they need to pay a lot of attention to what's going on, and real estate professionals as well. And I just got back from, I guess, a couple weeks ago, I was at the ICE conference, and ICE is the Intercontinental Exchange company that owns the New York Stock Exchange and also owns Paragon, an MLS provider. That was an interesting event to attend. And then a week later, I attended an event by Realtor.com, which is really the first major national aggregator of listings directly from the multiple listing services. So lots going on.
Absolutely. And we're headed into conference season. So more on everything and anything going on as we move about the industry as usual. You said something interesting. The markets, there's longer time on market in your market. So the homes are sitting for longer. So it seems like the prices might maybe stabilizing. Maybe there's a shift.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say they're sitting longer. I say they're not flying off the shelf anymore.
Well, people can afford to shelter in place financially through the upheaval and all the variables that we're going through as a country, if it's your house, but not if it's commercial real estate. Speaking of commercial real estate, office absorption remained negative. Market conditions have improved. There is return to office here in this quarter. However, this reinforced return to office policy is a new office. It's an improved office. Retail sector continues to post the lowest vacancy rate out of all the major food groups, with the industrial sector peaking end of last year. And to quote you, Saul, if you can't rate it, you can't grade it. As Rocket Mortgage and others consolidate and aggregators are bought and sold, I am very excited to see what happens next.
Well, I heard yesterday that in Washington, D.C., there's something like 50 million square feet that's not being utilized in government buildings. And so the question is, what will the federal government do with that 50 million square feet? And how can that be added to Washington, D.C., to the city? And how can that become a part of the tax base? And is it going to happen through business improvement districts? How private capital? How is that going to take place? So, yeah, you're right. There's just lots of stuff going on.
Well, and speaking of government, there we go. Dan Wagner back as usual, fighting for 1031 in and out of the White House. What's going on? Where's the government helping and hurting us on your end?
Well, I guess I'll start off with letting you know I got a cool email from the Illinois Realtors. They highlighted that I'm getting close to hitting my $50,000 mark for RPAC. So I hit my 25, but so every 25 they do a special ceremony. But I made my $2,000 donation for the President's Circle, and then $1,000 for the major investor for RPAC. So all of our members in the world of Realtordom, RPAC is a big part of how we are successful. So I'm putting a plug in right away for that. So there you go. But in Washington, everybody can see what's happening. Tariffs are the key to the world of President Trump, and he's going to he has brought tariffs to bear for negotiating purposes, I believe, to all the different countries around the world, around the globe, and how that will impact our world will be very interesting to see. I was on a call with the U.S. Chamber about an hour ago, and there's a lot of people in manufacturing and a lot of different companies that are concerned. An example, Americans love coffee, and we get most of our coffee from Brazil, and the tariff that's impacted will be probably a 15% increase in our coffee. So it'll be interesting to see it. And you can't grow Brazilian coffee in America, so it's not a lot of places to grow coffee here.
Well, yes, well, not just coffee, right? The tariffs are on everyone's mind. This is a cascading effect across every sector. Chris, I know on the labor side, the construction side, costs are going up, things of that nature. I'm going to come back to the 50 million square feet of vacant space, what DOGE and the government can do with it in a moment. But Chris, what are your thoughts on tariffs and how are things in the construction world?
Yeah, so a lot of the jobs, I started chatting about this, I believe, last month and the month before. We're starting to see some of the jobs that were kind of held up. They're starting to come back around now. They're starting to actually start. But the other problem is that's not just because the weather's getting better. So now I'm seeing a lot of the contractors, starting to stretch themselves out a little bit because the stuff that wasn't happening is now happening. Plus the jobs that they were expecting to take on in the spring and the summer are there as well. But, some of the tariffs in regards to steel and things of that nature definitely have I'm seeing a lot of trepidation in regards to people want to keep doing what they're doing, but they also don't necessarily want to write a check or swipe a credit card right now in the industry. Like it's in the membership side of things, I should say, where everyone just has kind of a sense of, I'm not sure. I'm really seeing the membership thing as a real commodity that I've never really noticed before. I'm still doing fine, but I see a lot of members kind of like, listen, I don't know what's coming across. I don't know what I have to deal with. I don't know what type of extra costs I'm going to have to bear with the tariffs. They really aren't too sure exactly how to handle it yet. But there's also a lot of resources coming in from I see some of the law firms that I deal with, and some of the ABC National coming in with some tariff talks and some really special resources. There's a company called Document Crunch that has kind of a like a kind of a tariff kind of analyzer type of thing. It's a free tool that contractors could use to give an accurate idea of how tariffs can affect them. But with everything going back and forth, and this percentage, that percentage, and everything's kind of changing, and trying to see where it all lands, also can put a tool like that in flux a little bit also. But it's interesting. It's it's an interesting time, and it's kind of you can't hurry up and wait because things need to be built, so you can't stop.
Right. Things have to move forward, and commercial real estate, if you can outlive the turn, right? It's cyclical. You can do so, right? So the tariffs are here in Connecticut, at least on the brokerage side, right? We are seeing a bigger demand for manufacturing locally because of these tariffs, right?
Yes.
I'm seeing overseas companies opening in my markets, looking for space in my markets ahead of the tariffs. And, the last show or last quarter, it was insurance. Insurance was killing deals. The hike 10, 20% in premiums on insurance was worse than the interest rate increases. But it's something we account for and we adjust for. I am curious that you said there's no the hurry up and rate. There's no the hurry up and wait. I would say that let's get in now. Let's buy our lumber. Let's buy all our supplies now. Let's get going ahead of this all. But maybe I'm wrong.
I also see a lot of it's interesting you say that. You kind of sparked a thought. I'm also hearing a lot more and seeing a lot more people, or I should say people asking me and talking amongst themselves, amongst the other members I'm dealing with in regards to prefabricated steel, prefabricated steel buildings. That seems to be a little bit of a hot topic right now, where quite frankly, I know a couple situations where people have bought land and they figure the fastest way for them to get it moving will be to go that route. And if the stuff is already being made here, they can get it here, they can get the building up, and then they can kind of keep it moving, and then they could get out of whatever situation they're in, whether they're renting, or it just provides them the opportunity to get their building up as fast as possible on a large plot of land
for as little as possible.
Yeah, it's definitely competitive, and they could. And the other part is if you can get it up fast. Like I know one company right now that they're obviously they're paying a sizable rent. They have some land. They could get. The sooner they get that up, the sooner that other cost goes away. So there's plenty of different avenues that I'm seeing these people take advantage of, and they're buying large plots of land, popping their building up in that land, and then finding, a couple extra buildings on the land to get their own rents coming in. So I'm seeing some really smart moves by some contractors right now. It seems like everyone's looking for where they're going to put their place of business.
And
more so than I've seen in the past. Yes,
Let's not park it in the stock market. Let's not park it. Let's go lower risk. And the least risk in my world, and I think everyone on this call would agree, the lowest risk investment you can make is going to be a commercial real estate asset.
Yes.
Physical asset.
That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot of that.
That unless you can buy and find a car wash. Saul's car wash just says better every year on.
That's what they're going to put in DC, the largest car wash ever. 50 million.
You joke, but you never know. So they have 50 million square feet in DC that's vacant. They need to adaptively reuse this. They need to repurpose it. This happens all day. This is what zoning was built for, right? Opportunity zones. I'm not in DC. I certainly can't speak to that market, but at least here in Connecticut, I mean, different zoning groups, different municipalities have been very good about getting ahead and planning well for the communities. Moratoriums on new development outside of downtown, forcing investment in certain areas. Money has to move, and it is moving. Especially here.
DC is kind of unique, I think, too, because it's the seat of federal government. And so you've got a lot of this property that's not on the tax rolls and it's underutilized. And so there are opportunities for the federal government to work in conjunction with some of the surrounding communities and create jobs and create future, current, and then future development around these buildings in this land that's not utilized anymore.
Community development as opposed to hostile development, working with the community.
Well, in particular with BIDs, business improvement districts.
Sure.
Right.
Not just business improvement districts, or said another way, opportunity zones, or 100 different nomenclatures for different markets. There is a pathway to profitability and funding. And look, Inland's great at this. Inland shows up in a market, effectively changes the cycle from maturity or brings the market to maturity, sells and moves on. What's Inland doing, Dan? What are they seeing?
So we're very excited about tax reform with opportunity zones. Look like they're going to be coming back online again, and I mean they currently still are there, and we look for them to be put into the ultimate tax reform package. So we're bullish on obviously the experience of people being able to use the opportunity zones to take care of capital gains. It's a wonderful investment for people. DSTs obviously are another great opportunity for people to defer their tax issues. But with properties, we are really into so many different classes. But the thing that we are very bullish on are the self-storage. So Inland purchased a company called Devon not too long ago, and self-storage is, I think we're the 13th largest owner of self-storage facilities in America now. So that's a very important for us. Medical, in regards to people getting older. So seniors are going into assisted living places. We're purchasing those. The student housing is, obviously another place we go into. Multifamily, we're always there, and we have our industrial warehouses, and we also have the grocery and shopping center. So it's really across the board. And Inland is we're always looking at purchasing and buying, and things are going great. The tax reform is a big deal for commercial real estate world, and we are we have a little bit of some areas that we're having to go to Washington about. I'm heading to DC next week. I'm going to be going there for the Federation of Exchange Accommodators. For everybody, those are the qualified intermediaries that are part of the 1031 program. When you do a 1031, the money's held off by a qualified intermediary, and we are walking the hill to educate our elected officials about the importance of the 1031. That we feel very confident that 1031 is fine, but you just never leave any stone unturned during the time when people are looking at what could they pay for and use things for to reduce the taxes in Washington, so someone can have their own areas to put money into. One of the areas that we're a little also concerned about is the idea of having the SALT, the tax on state and local taxes for commercial real estate. And so the idea would be that you would cap the commercial real estate for the first time ever, and they're talking about at $10,000. And all of our associations, again, RPAC's a big deal for this, but all of our associations, NAR, Real Estate Roundtable, they're all educating the members of Congress to let them know that these commercial real estate deals that are being done all around the country, they're predicated upon being able to deduct that tax. And when you throw that all of a sudden out of the equation, that will cause people to have to redo a lot of pro formas on their investment opportunities. So we're waking people up about that. The other area that looks at that could be on the chopping block is carried interest. That's for people who are out investing and taking the risk, and they put all the risk on them. It gives them the ability to be able to deduct in the future. And Saul, I mean, you've heard this talked about over many years. people talking about getting rid of carried interest. But this year, it looks like that could be a big possibility, because all the tax writers, they have to look at the different campaign issues that the president had brought up, and one of them is not taxing tipped wages. So besides the Trump tax cuts that happened 10 years ago, they want to redo that. And then they also want to include a couple other things that the president ran on. And so with all of those things being re-upped, opportunity zones and so on, keeping the 1031s for real property, this is an area that they have to figure out what they can spend money on. So lots of moving parts in Washington right now.
And pockets of profitability, or pathways to profitability, is really what that means. If we're identifying areas where we can reinvest. Luke Klein, shout out to Luke Klein. We're going to talk more about him later. These tariffs, there are 800 steel fabricators in the U.S. that net less than 10 million. They're going to enjoy that new business from those tariffs. At the same time, if you're looking at these tariffs, you have those automakers, these car dealerships. If it's not on the lot already in the country already, that's a drastic change in the margins. Maybe it's time for a change in ownership. Maybe there's time for reallocating assets in real estate. I couldn't even speak to the fast food industry, but as far as grocery stores, the model where you go in and you take home food, pre-cooked meals, that took the grocery store from a 1-2% margin to an 8 to 10% margin. If we add a 10% tariff or tax change, the margins can't sustain that necessarily, at least not right away. So there's so many opportunities to at least be out there having conversations to see what you can do. How can we reuse XYZ asset? The only thing that doesn't change is the car wash, right? We wash our cars and we pay for it daily, and we're happy to.
Particularly in Southern California, which is a car where people love their cars, and we can't think about being without the car. But you bring up a great point, and part of this is housing affordability. And so we know that housing for many people is out of reach. It's not affordable anymore. And part of the reason it's not affordable is the cost of the land. The greatest component is the cost of the land, and the percentage of the land cost to the overall cost continues to increase. So land costs increase. If you really want to make housing affordable again, what you need to do, and you can see it's happening around the country, is you need to increase density. And if you increase density and you build more units on the same piece of property, you spread that property cost, that land cost, over more units. That'll make things more affordable. Of course, part of that then goes to more people living together, closer together, walkability, less cost for fire and police protection, cleaner for the environment. There are generational interest in doing this. So we're seeing pockets around San Diego, around the state of California, I'm sure around the country, where this idea of bringing people closer together, more density. Why is more density important? Because you can spread the land cost. And so we see a lot of that taking place. It's just very expensive for people. My mom and dad bought a house in San Diego for $20,000 in 1964. It was a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage. They put a swimming pool in the backyard. My mother didn't work, and my dad was in the Navy, but at the blue collar level. Right? It's like that those days are gone.
Well, Saul, what about regulations too? Especially after the fires out there, everybody's talking about how you can't. People aren't able to rebuild, so they're just selling their lots because it's going to cost so much to be able to rebuild with all the regulations.
Well, so that's a huge piece, Dan, and I know you deal with this all the time, and that is that you can't get things built because of the bureaucracy, because of the cost. And I don't know what the numbers are, and they vary from place to place, but it's like a huge amount of money per unit for new construction with all the permits. It's just amazing. It's tens of thousands of dollars in cost, and then the delays and the time. And you're right, in the Pacific Palisades and the area, it's like there are horror stories when you hear that people haven't even, in many cases, they haven't even begun to rebuild yet.
Yeah.
And so what's going to happen there? Then you throw insurance on top of it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
Well, Chris, you know all about that, about
Absolutely.
building the stuff.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's, we're seeing some of the other thing that we're seeing with some of the tariff stuff. We were talking about the steel and everything is, all you heard about was, the how much money was coming in for infrastructure. Now you're not hearing that anymore. You have a lot of this stuff is actually putting a lot of places at risk for the simple fact that there's different, specialized piping and all these types of things that are going to have these tariffs coming in from other countries. And these are things that need to be replaced. Just like those people that need to make a choice whether they're going to, rebuild or sell the land or whatever. There's also there's the factor of, stuff coming in that, quite frankly, people aren't buying. There's tariffs on it, and they can't get the right pipes into the ground for wastewater treatment and all these other types of things. That's probably something. I just read an article about that earlier today, and that was the first article I saw. And to be honest with you, I have more vertical builders that I deal with than the horizontal civil ones. But that they're getting extremely stressed out over things like that, because that's not only the livelihood of the business, but it's also absolutely pertinent, absolutely what is needed. You can't just sit there and modify what you're putting into the ground and modify what you're using for these things just because first of all, they're not available, and they're not just going to get made. I know everyone's talking about, fine, we'll start buying more from here, but if the stuff's not getting made here, then how can we buy it from here? This stuff doesn't, just come up overnight. And then in regards to the 800 steel fabricators that we were talking about earlier, I kind of laughed when I saw that, because it's a great point. And then I just laughed. I'm like, they don't want too much new business, because then they got to go hire more people. And good luck finding somebody who wants to work around steel right now. It's hard enough to get licensed trades, let alone get I see a lot of steel people around here. I hate to say it, but it's like they're swapping back and forth. Who's dangling a carrot? It's a great paying job. Great paying job. And to find somebody who's good and safe, they're going to make their money somewhere.
Well, so making their money somewhere. The focus on niche-oriented sectors, whether it's a trade, a specialty, or real estate, right? When we talk about AEW Capital Management, was just they put an article out recently, and it says, hey, it's no longer just about buying that industrial warehouse. It's about understanding the demographics, the psychographics underneath. It's about charging rent to users, shifting to a purpose-oriented business model, which we've talked about, only we've called it something else. Always mixed-use development, transit-oriented development. How do we power the AI? What and where are we going to house the aging demographic, the 10,000 people who turn 65 every day? Can we house them closer to everything else?
And that's why we're in assisted living, and that's why we're investing in exactly. That's totally.
That's why that inland's seen the writing on the wall,
yeah,
right? So, and it's a good space to be in. It's an expensive space to be in, and continued care facilities. I mean, these COVID hit; these things all stalled out. Assumably, I don't want to hypothesize, but that's my understanding. But now everyone's paying more attention. Where can I buy? Why can I buy? Where is the J curve? Based on data that we just didn't have 10 years ago, 5 years ago. And without getting into a conversation or a debate, Saul, because you and I sit in the camp of, as brokers, we own data. We have the newest data. We should get paid for that, right? Mm-hmm. But and I'm hoping it's coming soon. The question I have for the group, as we're already at a half hour mark. I can't believe it.
Are we really? Oh my God!
We are half hour into it. April 3rd, first quarter, right? I don't see, at least where I sit, a lack of confidence in moving forward, even in legacy or in new age, right? If I'm going in after AI infrastructure, there's such demand that's identified. I see no reason to slow down. The banks, with appraisals now stabilizing, they're lending, right? Investors, while they lost confidence in office, they seem to be back, ready to reinvest in some office, more mixed use. What headwinds are you seeing, if any, as you move about. Saul, I know on the MLS side, and I'm curious here to the data side, from a tech standpoint, what changes do you think are coming with tariffs and otherwise? Because again, it's all costs at the end of the day.
Yeah, so I would say that the future is uncertain, but I would say that every day. And so that's where the opportunity is. And it's for people that take the time to go out and look. So yeah, we've got good news and bad news. If you look at tariffs, just kind of depends on how you look at it. And I know the way you would look at it, Andreas, and I would look at it the same way. And the secret to success financially is not a secret. It's buy low, sell high, right? Buy low, sell high. But often people they're afraid when they see a little bit of uncertainty, and so they sell at the wrong time, and then they buy at the wrong time. So right, and then you mentioned AI and what's that? We see new AI applications all the time in real estate. Lots of different ways to use the artificial intelligence today. We're using it here in the office. We've taken all of our operational manuals and rules and NAR's rules and the California Association of Rules around MLSs. We put them into the library for the artificial intelligence that we're using, and then we begin to query it, and it begins to learn. And now we can deliver more consistent customer service to our customers because it's just not somebody who we trained on the customer service call. They actually can ask the question. It's been asked before. The AI has learned. So there are different uses of AI. Personally, I use it for searching now. I don't go to Google very often anymore. And I wanted to write an article the other day on the life cycle of a loan. And this was the trick. I knew all the questions to ask. Right. And so because I knew the questions to ask, I got a result that was satisfactory. If I didn't know the questions, I could be flailing around and who knows what I would end up with and how long I'd be playing with it.
Well, that goes back to you don't know what you don't know. You can't know what you don't know. And that's where AI is tricky, because if it does hallucinate, you're in trouble. We have an acceleration and advancements in AI that's unprecedented. The adoption of AI that's unprecedented. We have the oldest of the baby boomers are turning 80, may or may not be using AI, and I am fearful of the next generation taking over for that well-heeled and well-educated operator who runs a real estate empire portfolio, and the kid saying, hey, what do I do with my portfolio now in the AI system? And the AI system just punching back bad information, because it does.
Well, Andreas, I'll tell you a funny story. My son in college, he had some of his colleagues in his class used AI to cheat. He did not do that, but some of the kids did, and they were so stupid that it was a math formula or whatever, and I don't know, like 10% of them used AI, and they all had the same answer, and the teacher is able to say, these are all exactly the same. You guys weren't even smart enough to try to change it at all. But that's an issue with AI. Yeah.
Well, I love it. Don't you? I love the fact that AI is growing as quickly as it is, and it's critical.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
important. The other day I watched Elon Musk in an interview, and they asked him what keeps him up at night, and his response was, "No, that's not what keeps him up at night. What keeps him up tonight is that we're not replicating ourselves, and that the birth rate across the world." We're not replacing ourselves in the numbers that we need to exist as civilizations. That's what keeps him up at night. And so when people say we're going to have AI is going to replace people who are working now, I think, well, we're going to need the ability to, because we don't have enough human beings. And we'll find other things as human beings to do, but we're going to need, the AI is going to become critical. The things that we need to get accomplished in the future, because we're not, the Chinese aren't, the North and South Koreans aren't, we aren't, the Brazil, nobody is replicating themselves in the right numbers. China's really got a problem.
China's got big problems. But that's where immigration's a big deal, and we need immigration. We need more people in this country to do the jobs.
Well, we need legal immigration. Exactly. I agree with you.
The rule of law, legal immigration. But Andreas, I would say from my standpoint, you look at our trillion dollar deficit, and it's every year we add another 2 trillion. So the idea of cutting is very important. But one of the difficulties with all the different cutting is that, when you cut something and I don't really has any impact on my life, I'm like, great, cut that. But the problem that's out there is that there's people who have their jobs are cut and their grants are cut or whatever, and that has filtered down into politics. And I think, and I know in the suburbs here in DuPage County, right outside of Cook, all of the different townships in our DuPage County flipped from Republican to Democrat, and there was much more interest among Democrats to come out and vote, and because it was a partisan race, they got to vote for the Democrat and to probably show their anger about what's going on in their perceptions in Washington. So those things that need to be done, these cuts, are very important for our future as a country. But when people have their oxes gored, they're going to respond. So, in my opinion, as a political guy, my opinion is that the president probably has 2 years to get this to whatever he's going to have do. He's got to get it done now, and by the time the next election rolls around, because my guess is that they're probably going to lose the House if not the Senate, because people the concern and worry is going to be there. And I was just at a Lions Club lunch on Tuesday, and the person in charge of our local library talked about how she just lost an $80,000 federal grant. Well, we live in an affluent community. We get, it's if we lose a grant, that the world's not going to end. But guaranteed, she wasn't happy about that. And I bet you when she walked into the polling booth, she probably was not voting Republican. But those are real. When they talk about that Social Security and all these entitlements need to be fixed, nobody wants to talk about the reality because they'll scare seniors. So then they'll lose votes. So the whole process of the political process is one that is, we got 2 years to fix this, and then it'll probably be a more difficult crazy.
What you're pointing to is undercapitalization of business. We're trying to recapitalize by cutting things, but when you take a chainsaw to things.
But the other thing, Dan, and I agree with you 100% on all of that. The issue, I think, though, is beyond most people. Yes. And the issue is we need a major change. So when I hear Social Security is going to be cut, well, there are many things within the Social Security system that need to be cut. And if you cut the right things in the Social Security system, you're going to ensure that Social Security is going to be around for a lot longer. Right? So some of these cuts, they're talking about that if people don't view them through the right lens, then they misinterpret it. And so I remember back in the 1980s fearing for the future of the country because we were billions of dollars. Our national debt was in the billions. And then there was a book, I don't know if any of you guys would remember the book. It was called How to Survive the Coming Hard Times by Howard Ruff. And it was like the country's going to come to an end. Well, now we're looking at $37 trillion. People cannot imagine how much money that is. $37 trillion. Now, it's interesting because in real estate, buyers and sellers will argue over a refrigerator.
Yeah.
The cost of a refrigerator, but then when it comes to they can't even imagine. So when you look at the pie that's the revenue for the United States government, the debt service is huge and it comes first. You have to pay the loan. Yep. And that loan is growing and growing and growing. And there's no chance that based on the current paradigm in the economy that it's going to come down. And so we will reach a point if we maintain the current course. We will reach a point where the debt service exceeds the revenue.
Yes.
You won't be able to pay it's like your credit. You can't pay it. You don't make enough money to pay the debt. So this is drastic, the things that are happening. Drastic. But it's like for my kids, for my grandkids, for my great-grandkids, something has to be done. And you're right. People's axes are going to get gored. some people are going to be handicapped by this. Other people are going to find the opportunity in this because there is
and there's wealth.
in this.
100%.
That's what we need to, as entrepreneurs, realtors are primarily entrepreneurs, right? We got to look for the opportunity, and people have to realize that the physical shape of the country and the world is in great jeopardy. It's not like we can wait 10 years to fix this. And you're right, Dan, because right now you've got enough power to start to make changes. But as we get closer to the midterm elections, there are certain people on the conservative side that won't be able to be part of that coalition because of the districts they represent.
Right.
I have to go back more to the middle, and that slows it down. And then the question is, if you slow down too much, are you going to be able to pull that rabbit out of the hat? And I'm not comfortable 100% yet that that's possible. But
and Saul, the whole like Medicaid issue, the states have now turned things that were originally part of Medicaid. They've added so much to it that the Medicaid funding, when they talk about cutting Medicaid and they make people like evil for doing that, well, the reality is that like California gets billions and billions from Medicaid, and all local governments, everybody, they try to figure out how to bill the federal government, and they think, well, that's great, it's helping my state. Well, it still is creating all the trillions of dollars of debt, and so Medicaid needs a cut because we have to make Medicaid to be solvent, and it's about ready to go bankrupt. So all these other, it is that simple, but getting their oxes gored is a big issue. So
smart cuts, being smart about where we're trimming, right? So the undercapitalized operators, senior housing is growing and will continue to grow. It's a good place to put money. Where there is pain, there's opportunity. We all know this. The institutions know it. Inland knows it. Investors are there on the sidelines ready to invest, and they're looking for alternative areas to invest where they wouldn't, right? And all of this can happen during this presidency, regardless of these macroeconomics, and they are. So I want to shout out to the audience here and say, well, hold on. There's a lot of up in the air, and there's so much going on, but there's always a lot going on. And to be fair, positive rent growth, markets, senior housing, CCRCs, traditional apartments, institutional capital. I don't think I've had I'm having a busier year this quarter than I've had 10 years as a broker. My lenders are as busy. Inland, I know, is the news is to be true, is busy. Chris, on the construction side, bringing this full circle, we're talking about the pie of the economy, right? So we have real estate, that's the major generator for the economy. Construction is up. Yes, no? Construction is up.
Yeah. It's definitely up. There's a nervousness to it and uncertainty about it, but nobody that I'm talking to is very slow. People are building. There's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, they're just trying to be careful of how they're going about things. But that, to your point, there's always something going on. That doesn't change things all that much. There's still a lot of things going up, a lot of building going. Most of the contractors that I'm speaking with are very busy. A lot of the contractors that don't do the public work, that focus just on private work, they all seem busy. The ones who do the public work, it's a little bit iffy back and forth to figure out what's going on, but that's a whole other issue too. I mean, I work primarily, obviously, with merit shop contractors. You got, merit shop contractors, union issues, PLAs, things like that. So I can't really get too deep into the public stuff as much as the private stuff. The people who are building private, or the people who are in construction doing private jobs, they all seem to be very busy. And that's from the GCs down to the subs. Like I said, the GCs, some of them have been waiting for certain projects to kind of get off the ground, and with the New England weather kicking up around here in Connecticut and getting better, and then other projects just moving along. And before you know it, we're going to be back in that swing where the colleges are going to be out too. And as soon as that comes around, now you're talking about private dollars. You might be talking about some public dollars, depending on what the institution is. There's a lot of colleges here in my area that are, they don't stop building. They just don't. Period. Yeah. There's always something getting done, even if it's just parking lots.
Look, Connecticut leads the country in kids going to college. If kids are our future, you should be investing in Connecticut. You should live in Connecticut. Shameless plug here, couldn't help it. But
I
that's
love
just
the show Christmas in Connecticut with Barbara Stanwyck.
There you go. I think I shared this story. I know we're getting towards the end, but I think I might have shared this story before. And if I did, you could let me know. But I was this was going back about a year and a half. No, it was last year. It was right around this time last year because I'm going to the same summit, the Women Who Build Summit up in Massachusetts. I'm going next week, put on by the Construction Institute, another great association that I work with. But I was there last year and I sat at a table. I think I shared this, and I sat there and there was about 3 or 4 people from the same college there, and it just so happens to be in the town that I live around. I made mention of, oh yeah, this. They said they were looking for like 98 houses. 98 houses. Any house that goes up for sale in that town, they're looking to grab. And I didn't think much of it. I just kind of threw it in my back pocket.
Broker, you're a good buddy, but okay, go on. Continue.
No problem. Next time. But no, I was sitting there, and all of a sudden, I made mention of this deli moving, and I was just trying to make small talk. I made mention of a deli moving that's at the bottom of a house, and I said, "Yeah, they're moving out of there. I'm excited. They're going to be right down the street from me." And their reaction, I was just making small talk. Their reaction was like, "What are they doing with the house?" And I'm like, in my head, I'm going, I have no idea, guys. I have no idea. I just want to know where I'm going to get my chicken parm next week for lunch from my favorite deli. And these guys immediately were jumping right on me, like, what's going on with the house? What's the address? What's going on? I'm like, whew. And I'll probably see those people again next week. But I'll tell you what, I drive through that campus pretty much every day. I was on that campus last week. I have members building on that campus. I have friends. It's nonstop. It used to be where summer's here, now we're going to build. Now we're building. We're building right through it, and then when the summer ramps up, we're going to fix all the stuff that we want to fix, and we're going to build another parking lot. We're going to pave the tennis ball courts, and we're going to do this. But it's busy. Good to see. I love it.
Look, the Connecticut leads Fairfield has done a great job. There are more the affordable housing index, right? For Fairfield, a town here in Connecticut, they've got enough affordable housing in pipe and coming down, proposed to cover them to avoid hostile development. Other towns are not as lucky, but there's no shortage of developers doing things here in Connecticut. I'm sure the same is true in California, in Illinois. The last mile infill development, anything centered in town locally, is growing. And it's just been great to see. That all being said, 1031's here to stay. Thank you, Dan. NAR is continuing to support and save us. They gave us the roads, they gave us the toilets, they gave us everything. So I did bring that. I did bring that up recently.
Yes.
These associations and these networks. I mean, you talk about labor shortages and understanding things and knowing who to have. These associations are how you get there. It's how you get trained.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see you are another year running at a 98% retention rate for your association.
Who, me?
Yeah. Yes. Was that
98? I don't think anyone's ever got 9. I'm at around 91 and a half. I'll probably end up at 94, 95, which is might as well be 98 at that point. I'm not gonna lie. That's
even though I can go on AI and ask the same questions, no, people are gathering and looking for advice for the association, right?
2 networking events today. Started today and right before I jumped on here.
Speaking of networking events, we've got C5 coming up. Not only do we have C5, we have the MLS Forum, International MLS Forum, Toronto, Canada, September 25th, 26th. ICSC Las Vegas, which we do not have a slide for because Becca couldn't make it today, so we can't call out her lunch, but I know everyone will be there. CRETech coming in the fall. And speaking of network and net worth, I do want to give a quick shout out to Luke Klein, who is a true blue broker and one of the nicest people I know. If you have time, please look into Lou's story. Visit Lou's GoFundMe page. It's easy for us to talk about all the problems in the world or the confusion or all the good or all the bad. But the paradigm shifts that can change aren't just regulation. They're at home. Lou and his family are going through such a paradigm shift. And as I've told Lou, if I can keep his brain next to me, I'll be the most valuable person on the planet. So Lou Klein, thank you for tuning in and providing insight and being a part of our audience, being a friend, being a partner. And we are all here to support you as you battle ALS. On a brighter note, as we hit the top of the hour, Saul, I know the car wash is doing well. The MLS is no longer in the news, right? The NAR is taking a back seat. Investors are out there. What is the one place? What's your tip for our audience listening in? Keep in mind, 27% of our audience is now worldwide. So maybe the tip is to visit you at the Rezo conference, I'm sure, in some beautiful place that's coming up. I don't know. You tell me.
Well, so actually, MLS is back in the news. And MLS is back in the news because of something called clear cooperation coming soon, and a new policy dropped on March 25th and then amended March 27th called deferred marketing. So MLSs are going through another transition right now, and where it leads will be very interesting. Has to do with office exclusives, what's in the best interest of a consumer, what's not in the best interest of a consumer. Of course, as someone who runs an MLS, and I've always felt this way, that if we share information and make it available to more people, it's going to benefit sellers, benefit buyers, benefit people who list real estate, and also benefit people who represent buyers as buyers agents. But it's all under attack again, and will be real interesting to see where it goes. Now, quickly, I'll tell you about a new project I'm working on, Andreas. You'd love this. It has to do with health scores and AI.
Is this like China, where they literally rate people, everything you do, everything you touch?
Like walk scores, right? So we're actually working with a guy who was instrumental in the creation of walk scores, and it has to do with the built environment. And you'd love this, Chris. It has to do with looking at the built environment, the transportation and the infrastructure, the land use, the walkability, the pedestrian environment, the green space, and that built environment leads to behaviors, human behaviors, and human exposures. And human behaviors like dietary intake, physical activity, social interaction, exposures like air pollution, traffic and safety, and crime and noise. And that leads to a biological response, which leads to things like obesity and systematic inflation and stress. And that leads to chronic disease. And so imagine if we could take all the data and all the information, including what properties are listing for and selling for in an area, and we can come up with a health score. And we can say that if you live in an area that has more sidewalks and more green space, and you live longer, or you're healthier, or you have less chronic disease. So I'm working with the University of California, San Diego professor on this kind of project. And again, it will utilize MLS data and find a new use for MLS data in enhancing environments for people and certainty. And of course, who would be a buyer of this kind of data, a health score, like insurance companies, cities that are planning, getting ready to change the zoning. So lots of good things going on around MLS, but right now we're under fire, and we'll see.
But you're still in the MLS is instrument. The MLS to residential is instrumental. It is the only aggregate place for information for sharing, whether it's cooperation or not. That's what it is. It's a Bloomberg terminal, right? The health score you just mentioned, that's interesting. The person you didn't mention, or the group you didn't mention, in who would buy it? Well, I think Inland would. I think investors would. I think developers will.
REITs, real estate,
100%.
Cities, counties.
You're talking about the next generation of demographics and psychographics, taking tapestry segments and finding lookalike markets, only now taking it to the next generation. Where can they be? What market's going to be healthier for my end users? And what am I going to build there?
I like the idea of healthier and longer. And Saul, I want you to live to be 140. So let's make sure
get on that.
Let's get that going.
Well, that's why I said California. Yeah,
you're one of the good guys in the world, Saul.
I love
Plenty of sidewalks.
So from my
And-
standpoint, if you want to go to me next, the most important thing to remember is politics. Is just keep aware of what's going on around you in your local, state, national organizations, and that's where the National Association of Realtors, your state, and your local have these wonderful government affairs people that will keep you up to date of what's impacting your world from all levels of government, and you can't have a better investment than being a part of these organizations, because you're working your life, you're paying your bills, you're doing your job, and the staff on these organizations are so top notch that they're going to be able to keep you up to date of what's going on, because you just don't have the time and energy, and they have all the resources to be able to do that with their technology. So just another plug to get engaged and get involved in this wonderful Realtor Association network. It's the best investment you can possibly make. And then from an inland standpoint, of course, we love buy-in, but the other thing that we're doing, we've had so much success in running all of our real estate platforms that we're doing third-party management for real estate in all sectors. And we also have third-party tax. We're reducing people's taxes all around the country. We've been doing this stuff all these years, and now people are asking for help, because with the average age of people working in inland, it's like they've been working here for at least 20 years. So that kind of life experience is just, you can't touch it anywhere else. It's pretty exciting. So a lot of growth and new things happening in inland.
So there is no replacement for experience, and inland does things very well. And so now your fee per service, you're offering it out to others, which is fantastic. And we spoke before on not cloning, but Saul, there's enough video and publications of you out there that I think AI is going to put together, a Saul bot. I'm just telling you, I think there's enough.
A hologram for sure. A hologram for sure.
And you better stick around for a while, because I want to see this thing happen, and it's coming, certainly. But no, vertically integrating, selling for service, being of value. These are all resonating themes that make tremendous sense, right? Why not apply our expertise where we can and be paid for it? Yep. Whatever that expertise may be.
Sure.
Chris, over to you here.
Yeah, I mean, on the, we talk about these different associations. What I love about this side note, what I love about this show right now is this is one of those shows where I kind of sit back and listen to Saul, listen to Dan, listen to yourself, and it's like nice student of the game type of situation where I could just listen and get out of my own silo and just kind of get all these different views and all these different facts that I'm not catching on a daily basis while I'm running around. But my biggest thing with like the association type of stuff, no matter what association you're in, is just staying with it. Even if you're finding the minimal amount of value and you're paying a certain amount of money, I have a thing where I talk to my members a lot and I say, listen, there were 170 member companies at CTABC when I came in 7 years ago. Now we're over 250. All you have to do is stick around before you even get involved. Just stick around, and these associations will grow around you. And if the associations grow around you, then the resources are going to grow around you. And for my guys, even if it's a contractor situation, even just being in a directory with 80 more members growing every single year is going to pay dividends. They call it strength in numbers for a reason. And it's not just at the political level. It's not just at the training level. It's at every single level that you could possibly think of, whether it's from the financial side of things, the political side of things. So just hanging in there and kind of staying the course, because I know, like I said, a lot of people are kind of like, I don't want to leave. I don't want to go anywhere, but I'm kind of getting nervous about writing that check this year. I'm like, don't step over don't step over $1 to pick up a nickel here. Like, stick around. This is the time you got to stick around. We did 94% retention during COVID, and we hit growth during COVID because that's where people were getting everything that they needed. Every single day they were getting it because I was tapping into experts, our president, everyone's tapping into experts. When times are toughest, that's when you got to kind of dig in and make the most out of your association memberships.
Well, and not just when times are tough, because that's what you really hit the nail on the head. If you spend money somewhere,
Yep.
the fact is adoption of technology, MLS or otherwise, you really, and I speak from experience, I've consulted with companies, CRM systems, growth, startups, full grown. There's so much under the hood. It's what you do with it. There's nothing I love. Well, not that I love nothing better than the look on the faces of some of the agents I teach for continuing ed when I say, "Hey guys, I just want to thank you for paying your NAR dues for all these years and giving me Realtor Property Resource, the tool that you paid for that helps me win business because you've been paying for it out of your dues and you don't know about it. It's an association perk you just don't know about."
Yeah.
So wherever you're spending your money, are you actually utilizing that system? Are you getting the full value out of that system? And that same point into assets. Are these underutilized assets? Does zoning allow for more? What does more really mean? And how can I figure that out? How can I leverage that? Who do I need to leverage that? Because network is net worth. As always, it's a pleasure to have you guys on the show. I want to thank our audience for tuning in. It is now 7:01, top of the hour. I want to thank our show producer, Mr. Mendoza, for everything he does behind the scenes to make us look good. We are approaching 100 episodes this December, 4,000 people in our audience, tune-ins, downloads monthly. We are available everywhere you get your audio, all major social media channels, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where there's a host of great content, including sector interviews. Please do rate and review us. It really does help. Saul, Dan, Chris, thank you as always. Looking forward to seeing you next month, seeing what's happening here in the month of May once we get there. All I know is things are headed in the right direction. It's the only direction God gives us. So with that, Mr. Mendoza, please head us out, and we'll see you next month.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Roundtable, powered by CRECo.ai, your source for the latest in real estate and technology. For past episodes, sector interviews, and more great content, follow us on all social media and YouTube at CRE Collaborative. You can also find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. Please like, subscribe, and share. It really does help. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you at the next Real Estate Roundtable.